Hey man,
Hey, how are you?
good, good. How's it going there?
Good. Nice Monday.
It is. Your tweets are on fire today, by the way. I don't know what I don't know what got into you, but the last couple about the only owning three books was awesome.
Yeah, it's like I keep getting, we have this recurring question in Basecamp set up about like, what are you reading? And I'm seeing all these books fly by. I'm like, I want to read that. I want to read that. So I was going to Amazon, like getting ready to buy them all. And I'm like, wait a second. The last time I saw these recommendations for other books, I bought them all and haven't read any of them. I'm not like buying a book is 30% of the satisfaction of reading it. And so it's kind of like I want to stop myself from, maybe it's actually 80% of the, I don't even know, but you kind of feel like you're almost doing something when you read a book. It's like, and when you buy a book, and you don't actually read it. So I just feel bad about that. So I'm trying to like not buy anything until I finish a couple things first. It's like one in, one out sort of feeling. Anyway.
I I have a personal philosophy. So I used to struggle with this too, right? And a certain thing that I've kind of switched about how I feel about books is I now encourage myself to throw. I do all this virtually, but so I'm not exactly throwing away books, but I encourage myself to basically throw away more books. Like I stop the friction of worrying about finishing a book.
Mhm.
I constantly just keep throwing away more books and just going to the next one. Because like I'm with you, but I feel like when I talk to a lot of people who get into this mode of not finishing books, it's like this guilt. Like they don't want to move to the next book, but they don't want to finish this book, but they know they should finish this book. So then they read no books. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's a pattern I have fallen into. So I've just decided just to say, fuck it. No more. I'm going to just waste more money on books. I'm not finishing it. And I feel better. Like I've gone through more books. Like, I just decide like, you know what, this is boring me. I know everyone loves it. I'm done. I'm going to the next one. And I've just basically tried to stop feeling guilty about it. And it's really helped go through a lot more books.
I mean, the good news is that books don't expire. Like,
Yeah.
you buy some arugula and you throw it in the fridge, and then you go to the grocery store and you buy more arugula, and you're like, why did I buy more arugula? I already have arugula in the fridge, and if I don't eat it, it goes to shit, and then like I keep wasting it. But at least with books, like I can get to them 2 years later if I want to, and they're not going to go away, which is
Yeah.
nice. Um, cool. Well, let's. I'd like to show some stuff from Basecamp 3, and walk through some stuff. I don't want it to be a webinar though. I don't. This isn't about just demoing Basecamp 3. So I'm going to throw a couple screens up. You've seen some of this stuff, and maybe if you spot something or you notice something and you want the backstory on it, we can talk about that and kind of launch into some of that versus just being like, here's what it does, and here's what it does, and here's what it does.
Totally. I mean, so I think a lot of people like the books conversation might be an interesting segue. Like we read a lot of books like, like Clayton Christensen stuff about jobs to be done and the whole milkshake. What job was a milkshake hired to do? Like a video that a lot of people I know who are following you watch on YouTube. And I know you guys have done a lot of those interviews. So I mean, is there like, so you guys are launching the new version of Basecamp. Like, I would love to see like, how did those jobs interviews actually influence anything that you guys are doing now? Like, what are you guys building with all of those interviews and that insight now?
Sure. I'll show you one thing in particular, around working with clients. We learned a lot about that through some of these interviews, but even more basic. One of the things we learned is that, and this sort of manifests itself across the product in a variety of ways, is that using a project management tool, any tool, doesn't matter what it is, um, with a group of people on important stuff provokes a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of anxiety. People are afraid to put stuff out there when it's not finished or when it's not done. They're afraid of someone seeing something that isn't there or they shouldn't see yet. They're afraid of even their own colleagues like chiming in on something that's unfinished, and there's just a lot of anxiety around it. And so we learned a lot about that through these interviews, finding out that people are actually afraid of things often, like sharing things. And one of the things we did in the new Basecamp is pretty much allow you to make, this is like it doesn't sound like rocket, it's not rocket science, but it's basic stuff, which is like anything you make, you can start with a draft of it and save it for yourself and send a link to someone else if you want to have them get some eyes on it before you actually publish it. In the past, every version of Basecamp in the past has always been write, publish, share it out to everybody instantly. And so this is just a way to say, hey, I can write in here, but I'm not sure yet. let me save it as a draft. It's my eyes only. And that sort of, there's that all over the product. And there's also just like slower, there's sort of a trend to like speed up everything in general where, I agree that application performance should be fast and apps should be responsive, but the flows around things don't always need to be very fast. And so we've actually slowed certain things down to eliminate anxiety, to make sure people understand exactly what's happening. We've separated a lot of stuff onto individual separate screens versus having like pop-ups that do different things. Kind of calmed it down in a variety of ways. So a lot of that stuff came from interviews, but the biggest one is the client stuff, which I'll show you in a little bit too.
Okay.
But here, let me flip my screen on here so I'm not just talking, because that's no fun. Just a second here. Screen share. Okay. Let me know when you see.
I see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. So this is fundamentally what the new Basecamp looks like. Now each project looks different, so I'll walk you through a few different ones. But basically, just broadly, you've got your tools at the top, and you can decide which tools you want on which project. So I'll show you a few different projects with a different set of tools. And this came from, and I'll kind of always tie this back to the backstory. This came from talking to a lot of people over time about things that they need, things that they want, things that they use, things that they don't want. And it turns out that today, there's a lot of DIY going on, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. And what I mean by that is people have like 4 or 5 or 6 different tools they're using to work together with people, and they're trying to patch them all together through integrations and throwing data back and forth. But then you've got 4 or 5 different bills because you've got 4 or 5 different products, and you've got 4 or 5 different user accounts, and you've got 4 or 5 different interfaces, and you've got stuff scattered all over the place, and some things are trying to aggregate and some things are trying to publish out. And it's like just this, like everyone's like duct taping solutions together. And what we wanted to try and do with this new Basecamp is give people a tool set, a toolbox basically, that we think is made up of all of the tools, straightforward versions of all of the tools that we think people need to actually get any project done with any group of people. But not every project and not every group of people need the same tools. So what you can do in the new Basecamp is you can go up here to this thing where you can pick your tools. And you can decide which tools you want in a project and which ones you don't. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, that whole thing. And over time, we'll add more tools to the tool set. But I'm not going to go through each one of them right now at this very moment. But the point is that you can move between tools depending on what you want. So that came from talking to a lot of people. So yeah. Real quick, at the top we've got the tools, and down below. By the way, I love this new feature in El Capitan and iOS. Was it 10.9? Or if you can't find the cursor on your screen and you move it really quick, it gets big. Have you ever seen that?
Not yet. I'm doing it right now.
Screen share.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an awesome thing. This is like total jobs to be done. Speaking of that, which is like, I can't find this thing. Like, just make it big for a second, and then you let go and it goes small again. Anyway, I love that.
That is cool.
Anyway, really quick, you get your tool set, your toolbox at the top. You decide what tools are in there. And then down below this, you have a full timeline of all the activity in any given project. So you can kind of scroll back through time. We flatten it out no matter where stuff is, and you can just kind of go back in time and see who's been doing what. Of course, you can jump into any of these tools. This is the message board. Now, I know everyone is loving chat these days, and we have Campfire built into Basecamp, but I gotta say that traditional threaded topic-based discussions are the real secret weapon for getting real work done. Chats are awesome for quick back and forths, but they're terrible for so many things. We need to dig in, make a point, make a presentation, speak up, get people to spend some time thinking through something, giving people time to post their responses, and having everything in an organized manner. So we've really doubled down on traditional message threads in the new Basecamp. So we have message threads, and then we also have Campfire built in, which is the real-time chat. So every project has both what we're calling gears. And this is another thing I want to talk about when it comes to talking to customers, is you realize when you talk to people and you get into really what they're trying to do and who they're trying to do it with, is that projects and people move at different speeds, different cadences. There's variability in things. Not everything, like to me, chat is for fast, rapid conversations. Message boards are for sort of slow, thoughtful pitches, presentations, updates, things that you want to have stick around, things that you want to be organized in threads. These are two different gears. We're thinking about this in two different gears. Chat being the high gear and message boards being the low gear. When you need to get more traction on something, you dig in. So we'll often start by having a discussion in a chat room in Campfire here in Basecamp. And then we'll be like, let's take this and someone write up a long message about this. Someone write a message up. Let's break this out of this room because we're getting nowhere. There's a lot of people talking, but nothing's happening. So let's stop talking about that. Someone take the initiative to write this up in detail, and then everyone can have time to respond and not feel like they're missing out because they're not part of the instant conversation. So we have sort of different gears.
That's a good point, because like we keep running into this problem too at High Rise. Like we'll we're in all these chat rooms, and we've even created these channels to try and help categorize that chat. But really quickly, even with a few people, we can quickly get into this mode where we're talking about two different things. We're going really fast, and it's not going well. And if we need someone else to kind of get in here to kind of look at what's going on, they don't have all the context. They have to try and go through this whole thing again. We probably should be slow gearing some more of these things and breaking out into these, like, yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah, slow gearing is this fast gear, slow gear thing is really something that we're baking into Basecamp all over. Not only can you sort of slow gear, or I shouldn't say slow, sorry, low gear in the message boards, but every to-do item, every document, every schedule, everything, every file can also have a slow gear. So you can really have a thorough, organized, tidy discussion. I think that there's a proliferation of messes going on right now. People are just spitting everything into sort of conveyor belts, and it's not a good way to work. It's a good way to discuss things rapidly, but it's not actually a good way to make, I don't believe, like significant progress on things when you want to give people time. You want people to be able to find it later. You want to be able to look things up by topic. It's just a really tight way. But again, campfires, chats, fantastic for quick riffs, throwing things in, having casual conversations all day long. Super valuable, but I think overvalued in many cases. Anyway, this is another example of a project here. This is a little onboarding project we're working on the new onboarding process for the new Basecamp. Very simple project: to-do list, campfire, docs, and some schedule work. Here's another good example here of a smaller project. Actually, let me switch to let's see, pick and play. I think is a nice. Yeah. So here's one that's just 3 tools: docs and files, campfire, and to-do list. And then down here we have the history. But one of the things I want to show you that's really interesting, something else we learned by talking to people, is over here in the docs and files section. This is where you can sort of combine any types of documents or files across any service, basically. We're only going to launch initially with Google Docs and physical files, but we're going to be rolling out Dropbox files and Box.net files shortly after that, and a variety of other ones. But the idea here is that, actually, I shouldn't, there's some people's email addresses here I probably shouldn't be showing. Well, I just kind of did, so that's that. Let me find like a test project here that's a little bit. Actually, I think we have some on ours. Really quick here. Let me turn on the docs and files thing here. So this is a little bit buggy right now, but what's really cool is, so if you have Google Docs, this is something we found out, right? People use all sorts of different things. Some people on a project use Dropbox. Some people on a project use Google Drive. Some people use Google Docs. Some people use Basecamp text docs. Some people upload files that are static from Word or Excel. People have a whole bunch of different kinds of files, right? Different sources, different hosts. And what's awesome about Basecamp is that we don't care where the stuff lives. You can link it up in here, you can pull it in here, and then you can organize it any way you want, even if things are stored in different services. So one of the things I wanted to show you, let me unarchive a couple things here really quick. If this is actually working, it's possible this is kind of buggy still. Yeah. let me see if this works. So what's really neat, this is totally busted here. Let me go into a sample project. Let me go over here. Let me make a doc. I'm just gonna go grab some text really quick. Of course, I wasn't planning on showing this, so I'm sorry. I'm not totally prepared for this particular part of the demo, but let me give you a quick example here. So some text. And the other thing that's really cool is you can take screenshots now and just paste them right in the text editor. So boom, pop that in there.
Cool.
Publish the document, right? So I've got a document now. What I can do is I can create folders. So these are actually, this is a folder, this is a folder, this is a folder. And I can take files and documents and pop them right in folders. And it doesn't matter if it's a file, it doesn't matter if it's a text document, it doesn't matter if it's a Google Doc, it wouldn't matter if it's a Dropbox file. I can organize things any way I want in folders. Now, of course, this is not rocket science, right? People have had folders for years. But in Basecamp, it's brand new. We used to use tagging. And this is a good example, I think, of something where tagging is like, it's very, very, very flexible, but it's actually really pretty messy. And it's not as straightforward, and as like the affordances aren't there like with a folder where you can put things in a folder, and you can take things out of a folder, and you can kind of move stuff around. You can put folders inside folders, and that's a little bug there. Look at that. You can move folders inside folders, and all these things that you can do when you have the sort of a common metaphor that people are familiar with. So anyway, what we found was that organizing files from different services, but keeping them all together in a place, so there's this canonical store of all the things that you need for a project, made a lot of sense to build it this way. And then, of course, you can sort of reorder these things any way you want. It's a really sort of effective way just to get into that. And then you have your place in the project where you keep all your docs and your files. And this is just the final official stuff. So you might have a file for assets or folder for assets, and you can throw your logos in there and your brand guidelines and your font files. You can have another folder for final designs, and you kind of organize the stuff any way you want. So there's a lot of flexibility over there in that particular section.
Yeah.
Let me show you a cool thing.
How do you guys arrive into the aesthetics of this? I know Daniel Zarek, he might be watching this right now, and he was asking this on Twitter. But you guys also have how many designers work at Basecamp now? 8, 9?
No, there's I mean, depending on how you count people, there's 5 or 6.
Okay.
At a time. Yep. And
I mean, how do you arrive at is it one person's vision of kind of what this is going to look like? How long did you guys iterate on this to kind of arrive at what this looks like, even aesthetically?
Well, we've iterated quite a bit, tons of stuff. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Basecamp has always tried to aim for, or we as Basecamp have always tried to make something that we think is approachable, warm, and cozy, basically. So there are plenty of ways to make something extremely slick. There are plenty of ways to make things look very technical. I just don't think that people resonate with that. I don't think people resonate with museums. I think people resonate with living rooms and couches and comfy places. And so we've tried to use warm, comfortable colors. We've tried to make it sort of airy at some level, but also sort of have some density to it. So it's not just like this minimalist white spacey thing, which just, it doesn't, I don't know, it appeals to the designer in some designers, but I don't think it's really something that a lot of people are really into, like normal people. And so we've tried to, like this typeface we use is it's a little bit rounded. It's comfortable. It's a little bit playful. And we just think it feels good. Overall, it just feels nice, I think. And we've tried to do some stuff throughout the product where we're updating our logo to have a little smiley on it and stuff. And we're just making some little small adjustments here and there just to kind of make things a little bit more friendly and more approachable. As far as how it evolved, I mean, we just kind of been messing around for a while and kind of landing on some of the stuff. Some of the stuff is influenced by Know Your Company, which is another product of ours. Some of the stuff was influenced by some really early explorations of Basecamp a few years ago. Some stuff has just been influenced by like what feels good. Also like what we don't want to be, which is kind of, there's a lot of products that look the same today. I've always believed you're better off being a little bit quirky, a little bit weird, a little bit off base, a little bit different, than trying to fit in and make everything look like an application. So we've worked really hard not to look like an application, but to just be a nice, comfortable place to be. We for a long time had a sidebar. I want to get rid of the sidebar. Everyone's got sidebars. Everything looks the same today. You got your stuff on the left, you got your stuff on the right. It's just everything looks the same.
Yep.
So we've really tried to avoid that, and make things just a little bit more comfortable, and just centered on the screen and just kind of nice in that way. This is just my opinion. Of course, some people might look at this and go, "It's ugly. I hate this," whatever, right? But that's aesthetics. That's how it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
But something I actually want to show you, which is really neat, is this automated questions feature, which has been huge for us. So we're a remote team, right? So we have people in 35 some odd cities around the world now. And one of the things it's funny is like avatars are nice, but avatars don't really tell you what people look like right now. So we've added a recurring question, and in Basecamp, in the new Basecamp, you can add recurring questions or automatic questions that let you type a question, like what do you want to ask, who do you want to ask, and then how often should it be asked, like every Monday or every Friday or at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, whatever it is. And one of them we have is what do you look like today? And this is just a quick little thing where people can kind of post what they look like today. And it's really fun because when we don't see each other all the time, it's really nice to see what people's faces actually look like and not what their avatar looks like that they took 3 years ago.
Right.
So we have that. We also have like, what are you reading? So first Monday of every month, Basecamp goes out and asks everyone what they're reading. And turn my notifications back on. And all sorts of information comes in. And so this is something we learned from building Know Your Company, which is that if you want answers, all you gotta do is ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you don't get answers. And so Basecamp is doing the question asking for you, so you don't have to remember to do it. You don't have to poll your team and ask them what they're up to, and you don't have to ask people every Monday, are you blocked on anything? Let Basecamp do all that stuff for you. Let Basecamp do the work for you so you can figure out the other things you need to do and not worry about nagging people. So
Right.
basically go out and ask questions, and it's really kind of a fun way of getting at stuff. And these are sort of the fun questions, but on projects, we have
yeah, we're using them for High-Rise, and we're using it for like status reporting. What did you get done today? What are you going to do this week? And they've been super helpful for that.
Yeah, we were asking one here in our project that we're working on together, which is Basecamp. Every morning, Basecamp asks Nathan and I, what are some of the topics we want to talk about today? And by the way, these come either through the app, if you're in the app, through notifications up here, through the phone app if you have a native app installed on iOS or Android. And if you don't have any of those things open or running, they come through via email, and you can just click a button and respond without ever having to log in or do any of that stuff. So it's very approachable in that way. So Basecamp is asking us these questions. Neither of us have asked each other these questions. Basecamp's doing all the asking. We're writing stuff up, and then because things are threaded and organized and tidy, we can have discussions around particular topics and have a full history of those discussions in the nice, tidy, threaded space, rather than have things sort of flow off. We have a campfire room. We use it occasionally. Pulling everything into a conveyor belt, just like you end up losing everything. It just goes back and forth. It's just not really particularly useful for staying organized and tidy around topics. So yeah, we do that. We also, like, for example, here's our schedule. We've been keeping track of all the different shows. What we do every day is Nathan actually does this, is he posts the Hangout, Google Hangout link for this, and then the YouTube link. And then we can also have discussions around some of these topics or some of these days. We've had discussions about certain things here, topics we wanted to talk about prior to asking the automated questions, and we had that all organized here. So
you also just clicked on, you turn your notifications on. Can you talk more about that? Because it's like you introduced this concept of don't bother me right now, or do not disturb. I mean, how did you arrive at that? Like,
Yeah.
Was that from interviews? Was that just kind of from a personal gut thing that you felt like you were working too much on the weekends, or like where did that all come from?
Yeah, so we have this new feature in Basecamp, which I hope becomes a mainstay of many other tools. We call it Work Can Wait. It's our little trademark name for it. Basically, the idea is when you set up your schedule in Basecamp, like for your notifications. So Basecamp sends you notifications in the app, or desktop notifications, or notifications on your phone or via email. You can decide, like, hey, I want these all the time, 24/7. I don't care what time it is. If something's new in Basecamp for me, I need to know about it. So tell me all the time. Or you can say, work can wait. Basically, F work. I work from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Do not bug me after that, period. I can always come back into the app and check in on my own if I want. I can see what's new because I've got these badge notifications up here. But Basecamp will not ring my phone. It won't send me desktop notifications, and it won't send me any emails outside of my standard work hours that I've set up right here. And the reason why we built this was because a lot of us here, we have people all over the world, so we actually have different time zones. And so sometimes someone might be working on a Monday morning, which is actually like Monday evening for someone else. And if you post a message on a Friday, it might be a Saturday morning for someone else. And we don't want to bug people on the weekends, and we don't want to be bugged on the weekends. And I just had a kid about a year ago, and like when I'm with my kid at 7 o'clock at night, I want to be with my kid. I don't want to be with work. I've left work. Work is over for me. So I want to turn off all my work notifications. I want to keep personal stuff on because my wife might be sending me something, or my parents might be sending something, or a friend might be sending something. But I want to be able to turn Basecamp off because Basecamp for me is work. And I want Basecamp to basically hold my calls. And I've just been talking to a lot of people, and I've noticed a lot of just anecdotal evidence of people being barraged by work at off hours. And I think it's a terrible pattern. I think it's very bad that work is claiming more and more of our lives versus life claiming back more and more of work. And I'd like to help people dig back at work and say, you know what, work ends. Work stops. When I leave, I'm done. And I've got a life to live outside of that, and I want to be able to respect that. And I want to use tools that help me and my team respect each other's lives outside of work.
Yeah.
So you'll just see a desktop notification just came in here. So because it's between 9 and 5, but I can also snooze. So I'm like, snooze this for 3 hours. I don't want to be bugged for a while. Just shut up for a while. And now Basecamp will hold all my calls again for the next 3 hours and stuff.
Cool.
Anyway, I think we're almost out of time here, but I kind of ran through a bunch of stuff. But hopefully this is a good look at some of the early ideas, or the first sort of ideas that we're going to be presenting when we launch the product. And I hope people dig it. We're very excited to get it out.
That's awesome. Well, so we didn't even talk about the client side stuff. Do you want to talk about it now, or get into more of the stuff tomorrow?
I'll save that for another time because it's already 3:30.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Yeah. Let me stop sharing my screen just a second here.
Well, thank you everybody for watching this. We've had the most concurrent viewers, I think, than any show.
Is that right?
People look pretty excited about the new Basecamp.
Cool. Well, I'm glad people got a good peek. We'll be sharing some more details on it shortly. Probably I'll give another couple tours of some of the key things and talk a little bit about some of the design decisions behind them. Really excited to talk about the client side stuff, which is a whole new way to work with clients in Basecamp, and we'll look at that maybe later this week. And thanks for indulging me, everybody.
Awesome, dude.
Right.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to us on iTunes. We just went past 800 YouTube subscribers, and our stats are going up on the podcast. So it seems like people like this. Yeah. So please share it with your friends too.
This is what, our 30th show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. We made it to a month's worth of a month's worth of workday shows, which is awesome.
In a row.
In a row. That's right. In a row. Awesome. Well, let's keep it going.
Cool. So we will see everybody tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
All righty.
Bye.
Later.